The topic of seeing a note is crucial in music pedagogy. Seeing a note with the naked eye, in the classic sense, is impossible. That's why the most common image of a music lesson, especially a piano lesson, is of a music teacher pointing out where the student needs to look. For some reason, this image has never raised questions. In reality, it is direct evidence of an ineffective system for teaching note reading. What does it mean to see a note? When we talk about seeing a note, we mean not just recognizing it, but also the student's ability to instantly understand its meaning in relation to three main characteristics: vibration, pitch, position on the staff, and duration. For a student to see a note, they must simultaneously identify it visually as a symbol and understand the specific action on the instrument that the symbol represents. We often hear from certain specialists that they have secret knowledge or methods that help students in their approach to see a note easily. From the perspective of scientific music pedagogy, which we adhere to, such claims have no real basis. The physiological challenge of recognizing notes. The physiological challenge of recognizing notes relates to the structure of the human eye, the characteristics of vision, and how our brain interprets visual information. The human eye is designed so that distinguishing and recognizing small symbols requires precise coordination between vision and the brain. When a person looks at a note on the lines and spaces of the staff, if their eyes capture the image, it is immediately transmitted to the brain via the optic nerve. The eye needs to focus on the symbol for a brief moment, otherwise the image may appear blurred or distorted. The eyes constantly make small movements, called saccades, to keep the object in focus. This is particularly important when reading music, where the size and position of each symbol matter. Micromovements of the eyes and saccades. Micromovements and saccades enable the eyes to accurately recognize musical symbols by maintaining each symbol in the central part of the retina, known as the macula, for maximum clarity. This process requires intense concentration and the ability to focus on a specific point. Each part of the note, the head, line, and tail, must be clearly discernible, demanding rapid processing and interpretation of visual information by the brain. Reading notes versus recognizing letters. Reading music is different from reading letters. Musical symbols vary in both vertical and horizontal placement, representing sounds of different pitches, durations, and positions on the staff. For the brain, this is a far more complex task, as it needs to recognize the symbol and determine its exact position. Often, the eyes must shift between elements to grasp their relationships. This shifting pattern leads to quick fatigue and decreased accuracy in perception if the proper technique has not been developed, which is generally the case for beginners. Immediate association of the note with movement. For a note to be seen, the symbol must immediately trigger an association with a finger movement on the keys. In everyday life, we rarely face tasks where a symbol directly requires a physical response. In traditional music literacy training, this connection was not established at the level of SEACT until the development of the soft Mozart technology. The quick transition from visual perception to action was not possible, leading to a delay in interpreting the symbol quickly enough for the fingers to respond. Active versus passive vision. Another essential element overlooked in traditional pedagogy is the understanding of active and passive vision. Vision can be passive when we simply observe, or active when we purposefully search for and identify objects. Reading music requires active vision, as it requires identifying small details and quickly relating them to musical actions. This is especially challenging for beginners since their visual system isn't yet accustomed to this intensive process of converting symbols into action. Thus, the physiological complexity of recognizing a note lies in the need for precise focus, quick shifting between symbols, and constant correlation of the visual signal with motor commands. Scientific music pedagogy takes these nuances into account, creating conditions where the eyes, brain, and fingers work as one. That is why seeing a note instantly is impossible for the untrained eye. Musical complexity of the note. From a musical perspective, the note itself contains a visual recognition challenge. A note is not just a symbol, but a combination of visual and auditory characteristics. Without experience, it is difficult to immediately understand how a note on the staff corresponds to the sound source and its duration. The limitations of traditional methods lie in their insufficient emphasis on visual aids for recognizing notes. This means students have to guess the relationship between notes and keys, which complicates forming accurate perception. Signs that a student cannot see a note. The clearest indication that a student cannot see a note in traditional music pedagogy is consistent mistakes in reading and confusion when reproducing notes on an instrument. This shows up in the student guessing the notes rather than confidently reproducing them. They frequently pause, stare at the notes, or make constant errors, indicating a lack of automaticity in visual perception and immediate identification. This also shows when a student cannot easily correlate notes with the keys, frequently playing the wrong note even if they seemingly see it on the staff. This means they lack a solid mental connection between the note symbol and the corresponding key. Since their focus is on deciphering the notes, the student fails to maintain the rhythm of the piece. This is particularly noticeable in more complex pieces, where they not only need to see the notes, but perform them in precise rhythmic order. The rhythm breaks down, and the performance becomes disjointed and robotic. When a student cannot see the note, they often resort to memorizing the melody by heart, bypassing music literacy. This is a typical approach in the traditional system. By memorizing pieces, they perform music mechanically without deeply understanding the written text. This approach does not develop music literacy, but rather strengthens a reliance on memory rather than note recognition and comprehension. Thus, the primary indicator that a student cannot see the note is their inability to read and play notes easily and smoothly on the instrument without noticeable pauses and mistakes. Why do music teachers think there's no problem? Music teachers, especially piano teachers, often don't realize the problem of note perception because many have gone through traditional training themselves, where errors and difficulties with note reading were considered normal. In this process, learning was often limited to memorization and mechanical repetition. Many music professionals believe that slow and difficult note reading is a natural phase of learning. Teachers from traditional training are accustomed to solving problems with note literacy through repetition and memorization, and they do not see this as a deviation from the norm. Mistakes, pauses, and reliance on cues are viewed as part of the process. A result-focused approach. The focus on the final result, rather than on the process, is the main feature of the outdated, declining approach to music teaching. The goal of such training is for the student to play the piece correctly or pass an exam. To achieve this outcome, traditional teaching uses memorization, imitation, and modeling. This results in students learning correct performance, but understanding the note text deeply is not the purpose of the lesson. The teacher sees the student play the piece and assumes the notes were seen, which is not the case. Illusion of success through memorization. In traditional music pedagogy, memorization or playing by ear is often encouraged, especially if the student has a good musical memory or developed ear. Teachers may think the student can see the notes if they play correctly from memory or by ear, not noticing that the skill of visual perception and independent note reading has not been developed. This creates the illusion that the student sees the notes when, in reality, they are relying on alternative methods. Lack of knowledge of visual physiology. Traditional music pedagogy severely lacks knowledge about the physiological aspects of vision and perception. Many teachers are not familiar with neurophysiological aspects of vision and note text perception and thus cannot understand the specific problems students may face. Traditional methods rarely consider processes associated with active and passive vision, focus, and the need for developing motor associations, and teachers often don't realize that seeing notes requires different preparation than what they once received. The impact of active saccadic eye movement on a child's health. Active saccadic eye movements are not inherently harmful to a child's health. However, frequent and intense use of saccades, especially if the child has to strain to distinguish small or complex visual elements, like sheet music, can cause eye fatigue and discomfort. It is important to provide appropriate lighting, take breaks, and maintain a comfortable distance from the notes. The influence of poor note perception on the muscular system of beginners. When a beginner does not see the note, This affects not only accuracy, but also the muscular system, especially the small muscles of the hands and fingers. Poor note perception creates cognitive tension, leading to physical rigidity and insecurity in movements, such as excessive muscle tension. Insecure in reading the text, the student compensates with increased muscle tension, leading to fatigue, especially in pieces requiring sustained or repetitive movements. It also causes reduced flexibility and smoothness of movements. Muscles become tense, restricting flexibility. Instead of feeling the keys and moving freely, the student makes stiff movements, which reduces expressiveness. Contribution of scientific music pedagogy. Scientific music pedagogy offers a solution by making notes and the music text accessible and understandable to all. This approach allows people to see a note as a symbol they can interact with rather than an obstacle. This makes music education more democratic and widespread, strengthening the connection between people, music, and society. How to teach a student to see a note. To make a note visible, it's essential to provide constant visual support. Using visual aids or navigators to help locate the needed note and corresponding key is crucial for developing musical vision in beginners of any age. To fully see a note, the student must not only see it, but also immediately hear and understand its sound in relation to a specific key. For example, in the Soft Way to Mozart program, every movement, whether pressing a key or moving fingers, corresponds to a note, creating a solid association between vision, hearing, and movement. Gradual development of eye-hand coordination. The Soft Mozart system focuses on forming neural connections through eye-hand coordination, enabling students not only to recognize notes, but to reproduce them on the keys immediately. This allows students to see a note and understand its meaning within the musical piece. Interactive and dynamic technology. Using interactive and dynamic technology, Soft Mozart helps students track duration, pitch, and intensity while engaging directly with the music. This visual and tactile integration makes notes visible and understandable, and the learning process more organic and natural. Importance of neuroscience. Our approach is based on evidence from neuroscience. For a note to become visible, the student's brain must learn to instantly connect the visual image of the note with the physical action and acoustic perception. This is what scientific music pedagogy entails, uniting 3 levels of note perception, visual, audio, and motor, into a single process, building the cognitive structure necessary for rapid note recognition. The questions of seeing a note and understanding it are equally important, and it is at their intersection that the effectiveness of the Soft Mozart system lies. This approach enables students to transition from merely seeing to consciously and accurately performing music, a substantial advantage over traditional methods. This comprehensive integration of seeing, understanding, and executing musical notes enables the development of true music literacy, making it possible for students to interpret and perform music confidently and independently. By addressing the visual, cognitive, and motor skills necessary for reading music, scientific music pedagogy, particularly through the Soft Mozart system, provides a holistic framework that surpasses the limitations of traditional methods. Through Soft Mozart, students cultivate an automatic and fluid connection between visual note reading and physical execution on the instrument. This not only improves technical accuracy, but also enhances musical expression and reduces the physical tension and mental fatigue often seen in traditional training methods. In conclusion, the Soft Mozart system represents a transformative approach to music education, one that empowers students to genuinely see and interpret music as a coherent, interactive language. Scientific music pedagogy paves the way for more effective, accessible, and inclusive music education, bridging the gap between the learner, music, and society as a whole. By establishing a seamless link between visual recognition, cognitive understanding, and motor skills, the Soft Mozart system fosters a more profound and intuitive musical experience. This approach dismantles barriers in music literacy, making it accessible to learners of all ages and skill levels, and promoting a lifelong engagement with music. The broader impact on society. The inability to see and read music notes independently has broader implications beyond individual learning. It affects the cultural and cognitive development of society. When a significant portion of society lacks musical literacy, music becomes perceived as an elite domain, accessible only to the select few, rather than a universal language available to all. By democratizing music education and providing the tools to see and understand notes, Soft Mozart contributes to a richer, more inclusive cultural landscape. Scientific music pedagogy also supports cognitive and emotional growth across generations, as active music engagement enhances memory, spatial reasoning, emotional intelligence, and more. This comprehensive development helps bridge generational divides, creating stronger cultural connections and preserving musical heritage. In essence, the Soft Mozart system and scientific music pedagogy extend the transformative power of music to everyone, allowing learners to engage deeply and meaningfully with music as a language and art form. By empowering students to truly see notes, this approach redefines music education, reshaping our understanding of learning, expression, and the fundamental role of music in society. Empowering future generations through music literacy. The Soft Mozart system ensures that music education is no longer limited by outdated teaching methods or restrictive views on who can learn music. Scientific music pedagogy breaks down the traditional barriers, allowing students of all backgrounds to access and excel in music literacy. As students learn to see, interpret, and perform music independently, they gain skills that extend far beyond the music room. They develop critical thinking, enhanced concentration, emotional resilience, and motor coordination, all valuable assets in a well-rounded education. Strengthening cultural continuity and innovation. With widespread access to music literacy, society as a whole benefits from the preservation of musical traditions and an openness to innovation. When people are empowered to engage actively with music from a young age, they can participate fully in the cultural fabric, contributing their unique interpretations and ideas. Scientific music pedagogy thus nurtures a society where music is both a treasured inheritance and a continually evolving art form, enriched by each new generation's creativity. The path forward. As we move into a new era of music education, the Soft Mozart system stands as a beacon of scientific, inclusive, and forward-thinking pedagogy. By giving students the tools to truly see music, we not only expand their individual capabilities, but also elevate the collective understanding and appreciation of music in our culture. In bridging the gap between human cognition, musical expression, and societal growth, scientific music pedagogy positions music as a powerful vehicle for learning, unity, and cultural progress. The ability to see a note may seem like a simple concept, but in reality, it opens doors to personal empowerment and collective enrichment, marking a new chapter in the story of music education.